Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the respiratory system. First, we want to point out the diaphragm, which is part of the muscular system. The diaphragm is a muscle that aids in respiration. So when you take a deep breath in and you hear the sound, it's basically your diaphragm pushing down and your lung cavity increasing so it can have room to breathe in oxygen. And then when you decrease and you blow out the air and you hear the noise, that's your diaphragm pushing back in to help push the carbon dioxide out of your lungs. Okay, so we're going to go hunting for the trachea under all of this tissue, but above the trachea is an organ called the thyroid gland, and we're going to go searching for that before we go for the trachea. Okay, so I know that I'm close to the trachea because of this little bad guy right here. So this is your thyroid gland. It's part of your endocrine system. It's shaped like a little bean, and it helps aid in metabolism by releasing a hormone, and that's just regulating how your body is able to break down certain things. Somebody who has a hyperthyroid is going to be somebody who has a very fast metabolism, somebody who appears to be super skinny and just thin, and then somebody who has a hypothyroidism is going to be somebody on the heavier side, somebody who just has a harder time breaking down certain things, and they typically can be overweight and obese. Okay, so now that we've cleaned up the trachea, we can see it pretty well here. At the top of here we have its oinker, or its larynx, and that's just how it makes noise and everything. And then all the way down here is its trachea. It has cartilage rings around it, and that's just to ensure to make sure that the trachea is staying open and that it's not closing shut, to make sure that air is always being able to flow into the lungs and into these two tubes down here, which are called the bronchial tubes, or bronchi for plural. And it's just really important to remember that these are cartilage rings, similar to how you would have a hose, making sure that there's no kinks in it or that there's no way for it to shut. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to try to get the lungs and the trachea out in one piece. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to try to go all the way down to its back, and I'm just going to pull up and trying to get the lungs to come up all in one piece, along to making sure that the trachea comes up as well. So that way you can see all the lungs as they stay together, and that way it's not in shambles. Okay, so now we can see the lungs and the trachea here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut down the trachea, and then we're going to cut into one side of the bronchial tubes, and then hopefully we'll be able to see tiny little holes of the bronchioles, which is just basically saying a smaller version of the bronchial tubes themselves. Split open. And we can see little holes, right? We can see, let's get my little probe out, and then we can see right here is one of them. Alrighty, there's another one right here, and as you go further down, there's going to be more as we go. Okay, so now we're going to focus on the lobes of the lungs. Okay, so the heart is going to sit right here. It's going to sit more onto this side. That's why there's only going to be 3 lobes to this lung, 1, 2, and 3. And then on this side, there's going to be 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be here, but unfortunately we cut one off during removing the lungs themselves and opening it up. This is going to be a little different than the human lungs. The human lungs are going to have less lobes. So we have 2 over here, since our heart still lies in that same area, but then we'll have 3 lobes onto this side. Okay, so here these lungs are going to be a little different and this is how we know that this pig has been born, is that these lungs themselves are firm and they're not as slimy as a pig who hadn't been born yet, and they're spongy, but they're not like really squishy. You can't really squeeze in very well. And then another indicator that this pig has been born is that when we put this set of lungs into the water, they float.